Hello everybody, welcome to Next Eyes. Today we are here for the daily news analysis of 15th of December, Monday. Okay, so let's start with a beautiful quote by one of my favorite philosophers, Soren Kierkegaard. And he gives this very profound line that life can only be understood backwards, but it has to be lived forwards. Okay, so many things in our life doesn't make sense when they are happening at that point of time. Okay, when we stop for some time and then it has become past, and then you will be able to make connections with what has happened to you, why it has happened to you, why it shouldn't have happened, or what could have happened. But life doesn't give us the rewind button, and the future is always uncertain. Okay, so Kierkegaard actually makes this very profound distinction that we understand things once they are done, and we try to make sense and find meaning in it after things have occurred to us. Okay, but uncertainty is pretty normal, and that's where you find your space, and that's how you are going to live your life. Okay, taking lessons from your past and making sense of everything that you have already lived. Okay, on this very note, let us start with the today's daily news analysis. So these are the topics that we are going to discuss today. Okay, a few very prelims specific articles have been covered in Indian Express, PIB, and Hindu. Okay, so let's go to the first article. The first article is about NHRC. Okay, so now NHRC's order on death in custody. Okay, in UP, NHRC has awarded the penalty for the death of an individual, okay, in the custody. Okay, and we will see different precepts of this order. Okay, so now NHRC has directed the Uttar Pradesh government to pay 10 lakh compensation to the family of 36-year-old man who died in police custody in 2021. This order has been interpreted as the reaffirmation of human dignity and state accountability, amid persistently high numbers of custodial deaths in India. Okay, there is a very famous Tamil movie. I think it's a Tamil movie, which was India's official submission to Oscars, and I think it was Visaranai, and that movie specifically showcases a real life based incident of custodial death in Tamil Nadu. Okay, if you find time, please do watch that. Okay, so now NHRC has has directed the government to pay compensation of 10 lakh for the death of a 36-year-old man who was in the custody of the police. Okay, now before we get into the news, let us solve one question with respect to the NHRC. Okay, see, the constitutional bodies, statutory bodies, okay, non-constitutional and constitutional bodies are very, very, very important with respect to prelims. Okay, you need to know what are they. Are they constitutional bodies? Where do you find their mention in constitution, or they are in a statutory body? Okay, and what is the composition of it? Okay, and who appoints them? What is the tenure? Are there directions binding, non-binding? Okay, it is judicial body, quasi-judicial body, something like that. You will have to have basic knowledge on these sorts of information. Okay, so kindly see, this is a very simple question which was asked in 2023 prelims. It asked that which of the following is a constitutional body, because at that point of time in 2020 or 2021, constitutional amendment was passed and NCBC was made as a constitutional body. Okay, so let's get into the news article. The news article actually talks about the amount of custodial deaths that occur in India. Okay, it gives a stat. It states that 4,400 custodial deaths. See, 4,400 is a very big number when it comes to custodial deaths. Okay, they are dying, okay, without passing the judicial process. Okay, they are said to be accused, after they process the judicial process, and after that they are to be sentenced to imprisonment or death penalty based on the laws. Okay, now without any of these 4,400 people, more than 4,400 people have died. Okay, and this is the major reason is the only reason is that custodial death, which undermines the due process of law. Okay, and it stated that Uttar Pradesh alone accounted for 982 deaths, and there are other various reports, and in which the Gujarat's State Law Commission, it states the high rise in the custodial deaths and status of policing in India report 2023. You can quote these sorts of points, these sorts of information and data in your answers. Okay, this point specifically can be used in GS2 or specifically can be used in essay and ethics as well. Okay, now NHRC is once a strong watchdog is facing a few issues such as reduced moral authority, non-binding powers. Okay, and we will see a couple of institutions which actually give the rating of the human rights commissions of different states. Okay, now before we get into that, now what exactly, under what law does the custodial deaths come under? Okay, see, primarily right to life and dignity, Article 21. Okay, so that is one thing. And next, DK Basu versus State of West Bengal in 1997. It is mandatory. It stated the mandatory arrest and detention guidelines, and Nilabati Behera case of 1993 stated the compensation as a public law remedy. Okay, these points are to be noted. Okay, now the compensation has been awarded, the compensation has been directed. Okay, now there are a few institutions mentioned in this article. We'll have to know about that institutions, and one of them is the NHRC. So it was established in 1993 under a statute of NHRC Act 1993. Okay, and the chairperson is the former Chief Justice of India. Members include one of the former Supreme Court judge, one former Chief Justice of High Court, and ex officio members from the National Commissions. What are its powers? Its powers are to recommend compensation, which has been awarded with this statute, and the prosecution, visit jails and detention. It has to prepare an annual report and submit it. Okay, and limitations. Okay, it can actually take suo motu. Nobody has to come and complain that somebody's rights are being infringed. What are the limitations? The recommendations are not binding, cannot investigate cases older than 1 year, and limited jurisdiction over armed forces. So armed forces, over armed forces, it has very limited jurisdiction. Okay, and in lieu of this, you will see that State Human Rights Commission, with the state boundary as its purview, it exercises its power. Okay, so now this article actually talks about an international institution which under which the India's ranking has been reduced. Okay, now what is this? It is Global Alliance for National Human Rights Institution. Okay, now it is a UN recognized, but it is not a UN body. okay, and it is established under 1993 as ICC of NHRC. It's an ICC, International Court of Criminal Court for NHRC, okay, National Human Rights of us, okay, and its functions are, it accords the NHRC based compliance with the Paris principles, okay, and it has an accreditation system, which means status A is status A, B and C. This is B. Status A states that fully compliant with Paris principles, and next status B is partially compliant, and status C is non-compliant. So now status A of India's ranking NHRC has been deferred in the recent, okay, due to lack of transparency, okay. So these are the details with respect to that article, okay. So we have discussed the couple of important details with respect to prelims, NHRC or the other institution that I was talking about, okay. Try to remember these sorts of very important details, okay. So now let us move on to the next article. So now the next article is very important, okay. So now the winter session is going on in the parliament, and with this winter session going on, so many bills are introduced, and in these sessions, the one of the most important bill which was introduced is the new insurance bill, okay. I think Lok Sabha has already passed that bill. There is a high probability that it will become a law, okay. So now what is there in this, we'll just see, okay. Before we get into that, this is one of the previous year question with respect to insurance, okay. And I want you to, for this question, I want you to pause the video and try to attempt this question. So what's the news? The Sabha Bhima Raksha Sakha, or the Amendment of Insurance Laws Bill 2024, it proposes major amendments to Insurance Act 1938, General Insurance Business Act 1972, IRDAI Act of 1999, which aim to liberalize FDI, strengthen IRDAI, okay, and streamline the regulation and expand the insurance penetration. Okay, there are a few sectors under which the FDI is not 100% allowed, of which before this bill, it was only, I think in 2021, 75% through automatic route, okay, FDI was allowed in insurance, okay. So now this bill actually removes that bar, okay, just like the reforms in the atomic energy. Now the reforms with respect to insurance, I think it is very much needed, okay. It is very much needed because the insurance penetration in India is a little less, okay. I think if I'm not wrong, it is somewhere around only 14% of insurance penetration, life insurance, that's what I'm talking about, is only 14%, okay. So now, what are the reforms? There are a few prelims based facts in this, okay. These are enhanced power of IRDAI, which means if there are any wrongful gains, okay, then IRDAI has the power to disgorge them. Next, it strengthens the enforcement and penalties, brings IRDAI closer to SEBI-like regulatory authority, okay. Now, and the FDI limit, this is very important, okay. I want you to just go back and try to see what all sectors of which the government of India has imposed restrictions of government route and automatic route, okay, of which banking is there, atomic energy is there, okay. I'm not going to say everything. I want you to go and a few just research, okay. Now, so now it says that the bill says that 74% to 100% of FDI is raised, and the objective behind this is the capital inflow and tech transfer insurance for all by 2047. Okay, this is the main motto behind that. Okay, now the reinsurance, which means the insurance to the insurance. Okay, now the net owned fund for the foreign insurance is reduced from 5,000 crore to 1,000 crore, which means that now they are supposed to be having the reinsurance, the foreign reinsurances. They were supposed to have a corpus of 5,000 crores of net owned fund. Okay, we see when the net owned fund is already 5,000 crores, the amount of business that they can do actually tends to constrict. Okay, now based on that, it has been reduced to 1,000 crore. Okay, what will this do? This will increase the domestic reinsurance capacity. Okay, and now the LIC has been given. See, LIC is one of the profit making ventures of India. Okay, since our independence, okay, it has been one of the profit making PSUs, okay, of India. Now, and hence the autonomy is being extended with this. Now there is now LIC can open new zonal offices without prior government approval. Okay, it improves the operational flexibility. Okay, and also the next point that the amendment introduces is the streamlining, regulatory streamlining. Okay, so what are those? Now it has one-time registration for intermediaries, easier transfers of paid up equity capital, formal SOPs for regulation making. Okay, now let's see what are the key emissions. We have seen till now what are the inclusions. Now let us see what it doesn't include. Now there is no composite license, which means that the insurance cannot sell life, health and non-life insurance policies are there. So now the composite, these are called as composite policies, and these cannot be sold. Okay, now and for these you will need to have a separate licenses which will be continuing. Okay, and now the capital norms are unchanged, which means the minimum capital required for an insurance company is 100 crores, and for reinsurers it is 200 crores, and the entry for the small and regional players remain the same. Okay, and other missing provisions include no captive insurance companies and no multi-company agencies for the individual agents. Okay, so yeah, these are a few very important details with respect to the insurance amendment bill which has been brought out. Okay, so try to revise all these facts. There is a high probability, okay, that the question might be asked from this amendment bill because every year you see in the prelims 1 or 2 questions are actually asked from the bills or acts which were passed in the monsoon session or the winter session. Let us move on to our next article. So this article is a very interesting article. Okay, it talks about the climate technology integration and the importance of data and how it can create a positive feedback loop with respect to creating measures, mitigation of the pollution and climate change. Okay, so now this article talks primarily about the methane, but it has percepts over the other pollutants as well. Okay, so now the article header was is very good. Are methane emissions in India being missed? Okay, so what is the exactly news about? So it says the article highlights that India's methane emissions from landfills are significantly underdetected and underreported. despite methane being 84 times more potential than CO2. Okay, we'll talk about this in the coming slides, which has a lifetime of more than 20 years. Okay, this is the previous year UPSC statement, okay, about methane, and every year you see one pollutant or one or two questions with respect to pollutants and climate change being asked. Okay, now it argues that the satellite based methane detection combined with ground level verification can unlock quick climate gains, especially 15% of India's methane emissions come from the waste sector. 15% of methane emissions. See, this point can be used in your mains answers as well. A sector where the policy tools already exist, such as Swachh Bharat, waste rules, and Govardhan. So now let us see some data with respect to the methane. Okay, so methane is a greenhouse gas which is 84 times more potent than CO2 and has a lifetime of over 20 plus years, and major sources include the natural decomposition, anthropogenic reasons include agriculture, energy and waste sector. And India specific, if you go by the data, 15% of India's methane comes from the waste sector. Okay, and this include agriculture and energy, and methane is generated in landfills due to, especially very important fact, anaerobic decomposition, which means in the absence of oxygen. Okay, aerobic decomposition occurs in the presence of oxygen, anaerobic decomposition occurs in the absence of oxygen. Okay, now it talks about the global satellite surveys, okay, which actually which shows that the emission coming from the landfills can be 10 times more than what it has been measured right now. Okay, so there are a few sites states that in 2023 use satellite data to quantify methane emissions India. It identified that there are 183 hotspots, okay, across 12 primary cities, okay, and the major hubs. This point can be used in your answers. Major hubs mentioned here are Ahmedabad, Kanpur and Deoghar. The mapping over here is wrong. Okay, please make sure the mapping over here is mentioned wrong. Okay, fine. So now let us see, this article actually argues that goes into the reasons why the methane emissions are underreported. So first one is that it uses the traditional methods which has the limitations, okay, of model based estimates, which includes the waste volumes which are totally based on assumptions. How much waste is there? Okay, this much waste is there. Okay, according to some calculation, now this much amount of methane might be released. Okay, and next one is it leads to poor data quantity, aggregated reporting and infrequent updates. Okay, now this will provide a underreporting cycle where you will require again the expensive equipment, skilled manpower and difficult to scale in the Indian cities. Okay, these are a few challenges with respect to the ground monitoring of the methane. Okay, so firstly, the traditional methods do not they measure based on the amount of waste that is there. Okay, they don't have a qualitative data, but most of them is quantitative data, which will create a a feedback loop of underreporting. Okay, now, so how it is done, what it is done, we'll just see. In which in this article, the article mentions about a few institutions which actually look at the governance of the methane or the pollutants, of which, see, now NGT will set up a committee of ground level verification of satellite flagged methane hotspots. Now, in the local level, urban local bodies are responsible. Okay, urban local bodies are responsible for the waste management, and these urban local bodies actually should work in tandem with the collaboration with the SPCB and CPCB, okay, State Pollution Control Board and National Pollution Control Board, Central Pollution Control Board, but they act in silos, okay. And now there are global open data platforms such as Carbon Mapper, STRON, okay, and Climate Trace, Waste Map, and there is one pledge that India didn't sign, okay, that is the Global Methane Pledge, okay. Now we will just have a brief look at these institutions once, okay. First we will just go through the international institutions, which is the waste map. So its focus area is the methane emissions from the solid waste and landfills, okay, and it helps to identify the underreported landfill emissions, okay. And there are other global open data platforms, which is Carbon Mapper, okay, and SRON is there, which is the Netherlands Space Research Organization, okay. UPSC has previously asked some space research organizations of different countries such as JAXA and Roscosmos, I think, okay. Now next is the Global Methane Pledge, okay. It was launched in 2021 in COP26, okay, led by United States and European Union, which aimed to reduce the global methane by 30% by 2030 from 2020 levels, of which, very important fact, India is not a signatory, okay. Now we have discussed about the Carbon Mapper and STRON, right, okay. So Carbon Mapper, it is an initiative with NASA, ESA and Google.org. It will provide you the high resolution satellite detection of methane and super emitters, okay. Next one is SRON, it's a Netherlands ISRO, okay, Space Research Organization. And Climate Trace, it is an independent global emission tracking initiative founded in 2021, okay. It uses again AI, satellites and remote sensing, and covers methane, CO2, nitrous oxide, okay, and it is an open source, okay. Now the author in this article tries to show that these are a few measuring agents, and he tries to explain that we need to use the present data that we are getting through the traditional methods are actually not accurate, and we'll have to go a step beyond using the geosatellites, okay, satellites for the measurement, okay. Now these data are publicly accessible, okay. So now let's understand that why data is required. See, data is the very important factor when it comes to any reform, any policy or whatever. Unless and until you have the data ki kitna kya aa raha hai, kitna kya ja raha hai, kya nahi aa raha hai, you will not be able to mitigate that, okay. Now, so having shown the issues with respect to traditional method, okay, and advantages with respect to the satellite based monitoring is been discussed later part. It reveals that it is publicly accessible, verifiable. It reveals emissions are 10 times more, and it explains why waste methane was missed earlier, okay, and the poor data quality, aggregate reporting and inferior updates, okay. Now the limitations, it also talks about the limitations of the satellite monitoring, which include the cloud cover, weather interference, urban complexity, and which cannot actually replace the on ground verification. Okay, so it gives the two sides of the coin. Okay, now the core idea is the feedback loop, okay, which means the satellite will detect the hotspot, okay, and ground level team will investigate the cause, it will fix them, and this will again improve the ground data and the satellite accuracy. Okay, so this is what the article completely talks about, that the methane emission is very much high, methane is very potent than CO2, why we are not able to actually measure methane emissions, and why should we use the satellite imagery, satellite measurements, okay, and what are the advantages and disadvantages. Okay, in that it has mentioned a few institutions details that I have already discussed. Next, very important institution it talks about, it doesn't talk about but it mentions is the NGT, National Green Tribunal, okay, and UPSC has previously very comfortably asked questions with respect to these sorts of institutions. Okay, so it is a statutory quasi-judicial act, okay, quasi-judicial body, okay, and the chairperson is retired judge of Supreme Court. Members include the judicial members, expert members, and appointment by central government. And NGT has technical experts, okay, with respect to the environment, okay, and deals only and only, very important, only with the civil cases, not the criminal cases, okay, and it mentions about the SPCBs, and these are established under 1974 Water Act, okay, and now what are these powers? Issue directions under the Section 5 of Environment Protection Act. These are not established under Environment Protection Act. This has been asked in the UPSC previously. It is established under Water Act, okay. Now, so now this is very important based on a PYQ. I have given this information. So these acts cover, the NGT covers which acts, okay. Now the act okay, covers these acts which are BDA, PLI, EPA, Air Act, Forest Act, Water Act, okay. Now very important is that it does not cover the Wildlife Protection Act. NGT does not cover the Wildlife Protection Act, okay. So these are very important details with respect to the article which talks about the methane and how are they will be mentioned, how are they to be, how is the methane to be measured, okay. And I have discussed very important details with respect to that, and beyond that article we were supposed to know about a couple of institutions, okay, and we have already discussed about that as well, okay. So this completes the discussion of this article. Let's move on to the next article. So the next article talks about the X, which is formerly Twitter. It has been fined with $140 million, okay, and by the EU, and whenever European Union comes, almost every year you will see one question from that, okay. So these are a couple of questions. I want you to pause the video and kindly attempt these two questions. What's the news? The news is that the European Commission has fined 140 million. Okay. This is $140 million for violating the provisions of the EU's Digital Services Act, making the first non-compliant decision under the Digital Services Act. This fine relates to deceptive blue check verification, lack of additional transparency, denial of data access to researchers, and moderation delays in response. Elon Musk publicly attacked EU, calling for its dismantling, triggered the strong political reactions from the um, US leadership. Okay, so now it becomes imperative for us to see what that issue is about. Okay, so don't get into this unnecessary political debates with respect to that. We need to see what is important for our exam. That's what we are here for. Okay, so now, so what are the issues with respect to that? We have already discussed the deceptive blue check marks verification. Okay, before the Twitter, if you might have been using it, so you need to have credibility of some n number of followers to get a blue tick. But now you can buy a blue tick. It is like just like any subscription, okay, which shows that you are verified. Before, it used to have some credibility, but now it does not have, because anybody can directly purchase it. Okay, and now, so there were some issues with respect to that we have already discussed. Okay, so now what is this act all about? So EU has enacted, see, EU is very stringent with respect to its data privacy, okay, data sharing and everything. So this act, which was enacted in adopted in 2022, effective from 2023, it actually looks for transparency in advertising, accountability for illegal content, and access for researchers. Okay, and now when these things were denied, that's the reason why X has been fined. Okay, now why this actually matters? Okay, so the before we get into that, see, UPSC will not ask you what are the technicalities of this, how much it is fined, why it is fined, why not it is fined. Okay, so primarily it might say that can a private company operating in the state can be fined or not. Okay, if so, how? Okay, now it is a landmark regulation because above everything, above business, it gives importance to the transparency. And next, it is actually a reality check for X, that the paid subscription masked in the form of credibility and accountability and transparency are not to be entertained. And next, so it signals that the EU's fine signals action on the tech giants, including the non-European companies. Okay, this can be a point. Next, it has international implications, as the global tech now will have to go through the very important details with respect to the current regime that is going on. Okay, now this completes our article. Okay, European Union and its data privacy, data, all those things, and why it is fine. Or can it actually impose fines on the companies which are operating also? Because UPSC has previously asked a question with respect to that, when a few companies such as Airtel was also fined. Okay, and Hutch, before it was Hutch, that was also fined. Okay, so there is a possibility that UPSC might ask a question on this. Okay, this completes our article. Now let's move on to our next article. The next article is about the ship leasing, which is in full swing in the gift city. Okay, so we will this article actually talks about the ship leasing, how it is happening, and what are the percepts of that. But for the UPSC perspective, we need to know minute details. Okay, prelims perspective, they might ask what is IFSC. Okay, what is gift city? Okay, so now see what's the news. News states that the ship leasing activity at the GIFT City has gained a rapid momentum. With just 2 years of launch, as of October, 27 ship leasing entities have leased or purchased 30 vessels, with assets value touching up to 1.47 billion. Bulk carriers dominate the portfolio with a unified regulatory framework under IFSCA. GIFT City IFSC is emerging as India's regulated maritime finance hub, reducing the dependence on the foreign leasing centers like Singapore and Europe through regulatory and procedure, though the regulatory and procedural challenges remain. Okay, so let's just see what exactly is that about now. So GIFT City is India's first international financial services center. Okay, and it is regulated by IFSCA, the authority, and it is a unified regulator for financial services. Okay, and it enables the cross-border financial services including aviation and maritime leasing, and it is prescribed requirement. What are the prescribed requirement for the leasing entities? It is operating leasing entities with $2 lakh and financial or hybrid leasing with 1 million. Okay, now, so what is this ship leasing? We need to have a bit of facts with respect to that. So it states that as of now 27 are registered. Okay, and I've already mentioned the number of ships. Okay, and now bulk carriers, 43% of total leased include the 13 vessels, and single largest vessel is 1,50,000 DWT. Okay, and there are other details mentioned over here, of which the total asset value is 1.47 billion. Okay, now what is the regulatory framework with respect to this? So only IFSC based entities can hold ownership or leasehold rights for activities. Okay, and the permits, office space and personal sharing comes under the IFSC itself. Okay, and now there are transfer restrictions. What these transfer restrictions? The restrictions on transfer vessels from Indian residents entities solely for the servicing Indian clients. Okay, not for the others. Okay, so it major aim is to make India as the financial regulator hub. Okay, rather than going outside. Okay, with respect to the GIFT City. Okay, now what are the key advantages? It is globally aligned framework, reduces reliance on the offshore leasing centers. Okay, I was talking about the leasing centers itself here. And next is the competitive financing opportunities. Okay, okay, and next is what are the challenges? The challenges include, so now this will make India as a closed registry. Regulatory challenges already pertain. Okay, and it has overlapping with the SEC 3 rule number 329. Okay, and there are other ancillary services which require clarity. Okay, now there are a few things that we need to actually know with respect to the GIFT City. Okay, now it is the, what is GIFT City? It is the international finance zone, domestic finance zone with the smart city infrastructure. Okay, and so it will be, I will explain on the next slide what exactly is IFSC. Okay, so it has, in India it has somewhere around 886 hectares where the financial transactions and everything will be occurring, in which the 100% tax exemption will be seen over here. Okay, so see what is IFSC? IFSC is nothing but it will act as a foreign land in the India's land, where the investment can be easily made, the financial activity can be easily taken, and it has the state of art technology, state of art infrastructure and everything. Okay, so that the ease of doing business is top notch over there. Okay, so yeah, that is what this article actually talks about. Okay, you need to know about what is GIFT City, what is IFSC, and what is the ship leasing policy that we have already discussed. Okay, so let us move on to the next article. So in Maharashtra State Assembly, there was an unprecedented scene over here this time. For the first time that has occurred in the Maharashtra, that there was no leader of opposition. Okay, so this becomes very important for us because previously UPSC has already asked question with respect to that, and this is one of the question, and I want you to kindly pause the video and try to attempt this question. Okay, so what's the news? So the news is that for the first time since Maharashtra's formation in 1960, both houses of the state legislature functioned without LOP during the winter session. The absence stems from the mix of speakers and chairman's discretion, reliance on 10% seat convention. Okay, so now we will look a few details into that. So see, democracy is all about discussion. Democracy is all about, facing criticism, improving upon that. Okay, now India has a parliamentary democracy in which there is a ruling party. Okay, and if there are enough number, you will see a opposition party, and opposition party will have opposition leader, and that opposition leader is under the Act of Leaders of Opposition Act. That individual is given the designation of a cabinet member. Okay, and and he or she will be fulfilling very important designations, okay, in so many appointments, committees, etc. Okay, so now here, what is the it is not a leader of opposition is not a constitutional post. It is recognized through statutes, parliamentary conventions, and it is not a constitutional authority. It does not equal to the constitutional authority like Speaker, PM, or CAG. Okay, now at the union level, salaries and allowances are given under the Leader of Opposition in Parliament Act 1977, and it gives salary, perks, and so on and so forth. Next, there are separate acts enacted by the state. Okay, for example, now Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and so and so, which define who is leader of opposition, and not, but they don't, they will define who is the leader of opposition, but they will not define the required amount of seats. Okay, so now who appoints the leader of opposition? This is very, very, very important. Okay, now Lok Sabha Speaker, Rajya Sabha Chairman, State Assembly Speaker, and State Council, it is Chairman. Okay, now so the normal rule is that the 10% rule, where at least 10% of the seats are to be in the particular house are to be filled by a particular party, and the leader of that party is made as the leader of opposition. Okay, is this a constitutional rule? No. Is this a statutory rule? No. Okay, it is not even a statutory rule. The Leader of Opposition Parliament Act does not specifically does not specify the how many seats are to be required. It is purely based on the conventions. Okay, now so what are the historical precedences in India? Now during 1969 to 1977 there was no leader of opposition. Also the 16th Lok Sabha also didn't have the leader of opposition. Okay, next, so what are the role and functions of the leader of opposition? Inside the legislature, he leads opposition strategy, okay, and bills, budget, executive, and so on. So, and outside the legislature, obviously he gives the alternate view or alternate form of the government. Okay, and we will have to see the what are the institutional and constitutional importance. See, the he or she is the member of the statutory committees, such as in the appointment of Lokpal, CBI director, okay, vigilance commissioner, okay, and appointment of NHRC, CIC, like that, okay, and also the powers and privileges of the leader of opposition, which are given in the Act of Leader of Opposition of Parliament Act 1977. The salary status, which is equivalent to the cabinet minister, and so a few important details have been given. Okay, this actually completes our today's DNA session. I hope you have gained some knowledge with today's session. Okay, so thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.